Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers. The ceiling stretched so high above her that she could barely see it. 12 different alien species sat in a circle around the center floor. Their eyes all turned to watch her as she moved to the human delegation's small table. Elena had prepared for this moment for 3 years. She knew this meeting would decide humanity's future in the galaxy. The aliens had called it a peace negotiation, but Elena suspected it was really a surrender demand. The Zephyrian High Arbiter stood up first. His body looked like a tall, thin tree with silver bark. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like wind through leaves. "Humans of Earth," he began, "you have spread across 17 star systems in only 50 years. This rapid expansion troubles the older civilizations of our galaxy." Elena remained calm, though her heart beat faster. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Chen wrote notes on his tablet. As humanity's top expert on alien behavior, Marcus watched every movement and gesture the aliens made. The crystalline hegemony's representative spoke next. Her body looked like living diamond, reflecting light in rainbow patterns. "Your species is young and dangerous. You fight wars over resources. You destroy your own planet's environment. You cannot be trusted with advanced technology." A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles joined the conversation. This was the Scion Collective's speaker. When it talked, its words appeared directly in Elena's mind rather than as sounds. "We have studied your thoughts, human. Your minds move too quickly. You feel too much emotion. You make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. This makes you unpredictable and unsafe." Elena stood up slowly. "We appreciate your concerns about humanity. What exactly are you proposing?" The Zephyrian High Arbiter spread his branch-like arms wide. "The Galactic Coalition offers you a choice. You can accept our guidance and become a junior member of galactic civilization, or you can continue your dangerous path and face the consequences." "What does guidance mean exactly?" Elena asked. The diamond-like alien stepped forward. "First, you must stop expanding into new star systems. The 17 systems you currently occupy will be your permanent boundary. Second, you must accept genetic modification to reduce your aggressive tendencies. Our scientists can make your species calmer and more logical. Third, you will serve the Coalition in whatever capacity we determine best suits your abilities." Marcus looked up from his tablet. His face showed no expression, but Elena caught the slight tightening around his eyes. He was angry but controlling it well. "And if we refuse?" Elena asked. The floating jellyfish creature pulsed with brighter light. "Then you will be removed from the galaxy. Your colonies will be dismantled. Your people will be relocated to a single world, where you can live under proper supervision." Elena felt the weight of billions of human lives pressing down on her shoulders. Every person on Earth and in the colonies was depending on what happened in this room. "May I ask why the Coalition considers humanity so dangerous?" "We have never attacked any of your worlds. We have only settled empty planets or bought territory through legal trade." The Zephyrian High Arbiter made a sound like rustling leaves. Elena's universal translator told her this was laughter. "You misunderstand your place in the galaxy, human. You have existed as a space-traveling species for less than 100 years. The youngest Coalition member has traveled between stars for over 3,000 years. We have seen species like yours before. You expand quickly, consume resources rapidly, and eventually become a threat to established order." A new alien spoke up. This one looked like a giant insect with purple shell armor. Elena recognized it as a representative of the Hive Confederation. "Your reproduction rate is too high," the insect clicked. "Your lifespans are too short, making you reckless. You adapt to new environments too quickly. These traits make you a plague species." Elena felt her temper rising but kept her voice steady. "We have followed all galactic laws. We have paid for every piece of land we occupy. We have shared our technology freely with anyone who asked. How does this make us a plague?" The diamond alien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You shared your technology because you are too primitive to understand what you were giving away. We have studied your computers, your engines, your weapons. They are crude copies of systems we invented millennia ago." Marcus finally spoke for the first time. "If our technology is so primitive, why do you fear us spreading across the galaxy?" The aliens exchanged looks. Elena noticed they were using colors and scent signals that her translator couldn't interpret. They were talking about the humans right in front of them, assuming the primitive humans wouldn't understand. The Zephyrian High Arbiter turned back to Elena. Your species has one dangerous trait that makes you different from other young civilizations. You do not know your limitations. Most species learn caution as they encounter older, more advanced civilizations. They understand their place and accept guidance. Humans seem incapable of recognizing superior authority. Perhaps that's because we haven't met any yet, Elena said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Several aliens made sounds that Elena's translator identified as shock and anger. The floating jellyfish pulsed red. Your arrogance proves our point perfectly. This is exactly why humanity must be controlled before you become a real threat. Elena looked around the chamber at the 12 alien species. Some had controlled star travel for thousands of years. Others had ruled vast empires before humans had invented writing. They all looked at her with the same expression, the way adults look at a dangerous child playing with weapons. What you call arrogance, we call independence, Elena said. What you call dangerous expansion, we call exploration and growth. What you call unpredictable emotion, we call passion for life and freedom. The insect alien clicked its mandibles. Pretty words will not change reality. You will accept modification and control, or you will be removed. Those are your only choices. Elena walked to the center of the chamber. She turned slowly, looking each alien delegation in the eye. The human race requests 72 hours to consider your proposal. The Zephyrian High Arbiter rustled his leaves again. Very well. 72 hours. Use this time wisely. Consider the benefits of cooperation versus the consequences of defiance. As Elena and Marcus left the chamber, Elena could hear the aliens talking among themselves in their secret color and scent language. She didn't need a translator to understand their confidence. They believed humanity would surrender. Marcus walked beside her silently until they reached their private quarters. Once the door closed and he activated the security scramblers, he finally spoke. They're planning to use us as cannon fodder against something called the Devourers. I picked up enough of their biochemical communications to understand that much. Elena nodded. I figured it was something like that. Species that have lived for thousands of years don't suddenly become worried about a 50-year-old civilization, unless they need something. What are we going to do? Elena walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 17 human colonies were living their lives, building families, creating art, pushing the boundaries of science and exploration. On Earth, 10 billion people were sleeping peacefully, trusting that their representatives would protect their freedom. We're going to show these ancient civilizations what happens when you mistake human determination for primitive stupidity. Marcus smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. Should I send the activation codes? Elena continued looking at the stars. In the distance, she could see ships moving between the planets. Most belonged to the coalition species, but she knew that some of those ships, the ones the aliens couldn't detect, belonged to humanity. Send the codes, Marcus. It's time our new neighbors learned what humans really are. The second day of humanity's 72-hour deadline began with what appeared to be routine diplomatic meetings. The alien coalition representatives gathered in their private conference room, believing their conversations were completely secure from human monitoring. The Zephyrian High Arbiter settled his root-like feet into the specially prepared soil beneath the conference table. Around him, the other 11 species arranged themselves according to their environmental needs. The crystalline hegemony's representative positioned herself near the room's light sources, while the Scion Collective's jellyfish-like form floated in a tank of specialized fluid. The humans will surrender, announced the insect representative from the Hive Confederation. Their delegation's biochemical signatures show fear and uncertainty. They understand they cannot fight us. The diamond-like alien laughed her glass-breaking sound. Of course they will surrender. What choice do they have? We control 6,000 star systems. They control 17. We have weapons that can crack planets. They have crude fusion missiles that barely scratch a battleship's shields. The floating jellyfish pulsed with satisfied colors. I have been reading the surface thoughts of their delegation. The female Elena thinks constantly about protecting her people. The male Marcus worries about humanity's survival. Neither considers actual resistance possible. What none of the aliens knew was that Dr. Marcus Chen had been expecting this kind of surveillance. 3 days earlier, he had begun taking a drug that altered his brain chemistry, making his surface thoughts show exactly what he wanted the psychic aliens to see. The real planning was happening in parts of his mind that the Scions couldn't access. The Zephyrian High Arbiter rustled his leaves thoughtfully. Their surrender will be useful for the devourer situation. Human reproduction rates and short lifespans make them perfect expendable troops. They can produce new soldiers faster than any other species. A slug-like creature with dozens of eye stalks spoke up. This was the representative of the Mollusk Federation. How many humans do we estimate we can sacrifice in the first wave against the devourers? Conservative estimates suggest we can throw away 2 billion humans in the initial assault, replied the insect alien. Their short lives mean they have less to lose than our people, and their emotional nature makes them fight harder when desperate. The diamond alien shifted to catch more light. The beautiful part is that they will think they are heroes. Humans seem to enjoy dying for causes they consider noble. We will simply convince them that holding back the devourers long enough for our real military to arrive is the most noble cause in galactic history. Unknown to the coalition, every word of their conversation was being recorded by devices so small that they existed in the spaces between atoms. Human technology had progressed far beyond what the aliens believed possible, partly because humans had learned to think in ways that alien logic could not follow. While the aliens congratulated themselves on their superior planning, Elena Vasquez was having her own secret meeting. She stood alone in the station's observation lounge, apparently enjoying the view of nearby planets. To any observer, she looked like a nervous diplomat taking a break from stressful negotiations. In reality, Elena was communicating with the 17 human colonies through hand signals so subtle that they looked like natural gestures. Each small movement of her fingers sent coded messages through quantum-encrypted channels to ships hidden throughout the galaxy. The message was simple. Prometheus Protocol activated. Begin Phase 1. On New Shanghai, humanity's largest colony, Governor Sarah Kim received Elena's signal while reviewing agricultural reports. To her staff, she appeared calm and focused on routine administrative work. But Sarah was actually coordinating the evacuation of 12 million people into dimensional space. Human scientists had discovered dimensional, folding technology by accident. While trying to improve faster-than-light travel, the aliens had dismissed their early reports as impossible primitive theories. This was because alien science, developed over thousands of years of careful logical progression, couldn't imagine the intuitive leaps that human creativity made possible. Dr. James Wright, head of New Shanghai's research division, supervised the final preparations for dimensional transition. The colony's entire population, every building, every piece of infrastructure, even the modified atmosphere, would be shifted into a pocket universe that existed parallel to normal space. How long can we maintain the fold? Asked his assistant, Dr. Lisa Park. Theoretically forever, James replied. The pocket dimension is self-sustaining. We can observe normal space from inside it, but anyone outside will only see an empty planet. Similar preparations were happening on all 17 human colonies. Families packed their lives into dimensional storage units. Scientists transferred research data into quantum-shielded computers. Military units prepared to continue their missions from inside parallel universes. The aliens had no idea that human, primitive quantum physics had advanced far enough to make entire planets disappear. Back on the negotiation station, Marcus Chen was having dinner with several alien diplomats. They had invited him as a gesture of goodwill, wanting to show the humans how generous the coalition could be to cooperative species. The crystalline hegemonies, representative refracted light into beautiful patterns while explaining the benefits of genetic modification. Your emotions cause you unnecessary suffering, she said. We can remove feelings like anger, fear, and excessive curiosity. You will be much happier as logical beings. Marcus nodded thoughtfully while cutting his synthetic steak. That does sound peaceful. But I'm curious about something. If emotions are so harmful, why do you keep us around at all? Why not just modify us into a completely different species? The insect alien clicked its mandibles in amusement. Because your emotional reactions make you useful for specific purposes. Fear makes you run faster. Anger makes you fight harder. Love makes you sacrifice yourselves for others. These traits are problems for civilized life but valuable for warfare. I see, Marcus said. So you would keep our emotions when you need us to fight, but remove them when you want us to be peaceful? The floating jellyfish pulsed approvingly. Exactly. Emotional control technology allows us to adjust your psychological state as needed. You can be passionate warriors when facing enemies and calm workers when building our projects. Marcus smiled and took another bite of his dinner. That's remarkably efficient. You've obviously thought this through carefully. What the aliens couldn't see was the tiny recording device in Marcus's jacket, storing every word of their conversation. More importantly, they couldn't detect the quantum transmitter that was broadcasting their dinner conversation to human intelligence networks across the galaxy. By the end of the evening, every human colony would know exactly what the Coalition planned for humanity. Every human military commander would understand that surrender meant slavery and death. Every human scientist would be working on countermeasures to alien technology. As Marcus returned to his quarters, he found Elena waiting for him with a pot of real coffee, something she had brought from Earth as a personal luxury. "How was dinner?" she asked, pouring 2 cups. "Educational. They really don't think we're capable of understanding their plans." Elena sipped her coffee and looked out the window at the stars. "To be fair, they might be right. I'm not sure we understand their plans. But I'm completely sure we don't care. The colonies? All 17 are ready for dimensional shift. Admiral Kim reports that our stealth fleets are in position. Dr. Wright confirms that the quantum weapons are armed and targeted." Marcus joined her at the window. In the distance, they could see the massive Coalition battleships patrolling the space around the station. Each ship was kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. "Elena, are we really going to fight them? They have thousands of years of experience and technology we barely understand." Elena finished her coffee and set down the cup. "Marcus, they made one critical mistake in all their careful planning." "What's that?" "They assumed that because we're young and emotional, we must also be stupid. They never considered that maybe our emotions and short lives don't make us weak. Maybe they make us dangerous." Marcus looked at the alien ships again. Each one represented a civilization older than human recorded history. Each one carried weapons that could end human civilization in minutes. But as he watched, Marcus noticed something the aliens probably hadn't. Several stars in the distance seemed to flicker slightly. It wasn't natural stellar behavior. It was the light signature of human ships moving through space using drive systems that the aliens insisted were impossible. "How many ships do we have out there?" Marcus asked. Elena smiled, and for the first time since arriving at the station, she looked completely relaxed. "Enough." The final day of negotiations arrived with the artificial sunrise of the space station's day cycle. Elena Vasquez dressed carefully in her formal diplomatic uniform, knowing this would be either humanity's finest hour or its last. The Galactic Council chamber filled with representatives from all 12 Coalition species. They moved with the confidence of beings who had never been seriously challenged. The Zephyrian High Arbiter took his position at the center podium, his branch-like arms spread wide in a gesture of authority. "Humans of Earth," his voice echoed through the chamber, "your 72 hours have ended. What is your decision?" Elena stood slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. Every alien eye focused on her as she turned to address each delegation individually. "The human race has carefully considered your generous offer," she began, her voice calm and clear. "We appreciate your concern for our development and your desire to guide us toward a more civilized existence." The alien representatives leaned forward slightly, anticipating humanity's surrender. Elena continued, "However, after long discussion with our people across 17 star systems, we must respectfully decline your offer." The chamber erupted in sounds of shock and anger. The insect alien's mandibles clicked rapidly. The diamond-like representative flashed angry red colors. The floating jellyfish pulsed with dark warning patterns. The Zephyrian High Arbiter raised his arms for silence. When the chamber quieted, his voice carried a tone of cold finality. "Then you have chosen extinction. The Coalition will not allow a dangerous species to threaten galactic peace. You have exactly 1 standard day to evacuate your illegal colonies and return to Earth. After that, Coalition forces will remove you by whatever means necessary." Elena nodded politely. "We understand your position completely. We just wanted you to understand ours." As Elena and Marcus left the chamber, they could hear the aliens already planning their attack. The Coalition's military commanders were being summoned. Battle fleets were receiving orders to mobilize, but the real shock came 6 hours later. Admiral Thexera of the Zephyrian Navy commanded the first response fleet. His orders were simple: proceed to the human colony of New Shanghai and demand immediate evacuation. If the humans refused, demonstrate Coalition power by destroying their orbital facilities. Texara's fleet of 30 battleships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Shanghai system. The admiral expected to see frantic evacuation ships fleeing a doomed colony. Instead, his sensors showed something impossible. Nothing. The planet New Shanghai was completely empty. Not abandoned, empty. The cities were gone. The orbital stations had vanished. The modified atmosphere that had allowed humans to breathe freely had disappeared. Even the imported Earth plants and animals had vanished without a trace. Scan the entire system. Texara ordered his sensor operators. The humans must be hiding somewhere, but the scans revealed only natural planets, asteroids, and empty space. 12 million humans and their entire civilization had simply disappeared. Similar reports came in from the other 16 human colonies. Every single human settlement had vanished completely, leaving no trace except faint quantum signatures that coalition science couldn't explain. The crystalline hegemony's fleet commander, General Luminara, studied the sensor data from her flagship. This is impossible. Matter cannot simply disappear. The humans must have destroyed everything and evacuated. But our sensors would detect that level of destruction, replied her science officer. These readings suggest the matter was somehow shifted elsewhere, not destroyed. Shifted where? There's nowhere in normal space for an entire colony to hide. What the aliens didn't know was that the human colonies hadn't been destroyed or evacuated. They had been moved into dimensional space using technology that violated every law of physics the Coalition understood. Dr. James Wright stood in the control room of New Shanghai, watching normal space through dimensional viewing screens. He could see the Coalition fleet searching, desperately for any sign of the vanished colony. Status report, he requested from his team. Dimensional fold is stable, reported Dr. Lisa Park. Power consumption is minimal. We can maintain this state indefinitely. Population, all 12 million colonists are safe and accounted for. No one was lost in the transition. James smiled as he watched the alien ships on his screens. They were using every type of sensor known to Coalition science. But they couldn't detect the pocket dimension that existed just a few quantum layers away from normal space. But the real surprise came when the Coalition decided to establish a blockade around the empty New Shanghai system. Captain Jessica Torres commanded the human stealth ship Defiant, positioned in normal space just outside the Coalition fleet's sensor range. Her ship was invisible to alien detection systems, using stealth technology that bent light and energy around the vessel. Captain, reported her sensor officer, the alien fleet is setting up a permanent patrol pattern. They're planning to wait for us to return. Jessica smiled grimly. They're about to learn that humans don't always do what's expected. Weapons officer, target the flagship's engine section. Fire when ready. The alien fleet's first indication that something was wrong came when Admiral Texara's battleship suddenly lost main power. Quantum torpedoes struck from an impossible angle, hitting the ship from directly above where no enemy should have been able to approach undetected. Report, Texara demanded as his bridge crew scrambled to understand what had happened. Sir, we're under attack, but our sensors show no enemy ships. The weapons fire came from empty space. More human ships decloaked just long enough to fire, then vanished again before the alien sensors could lock onto them. Coalition vessels designed to fight traditional space battles found themselves helpless against enemies they couldn't see or predict. The Battle of New Shanghai lasted only 20 minutes. When it ended, 15 Coalition battleships were disabled and drifting in space. Not destroyed, humans didn't want to kill unless necessary, but completely powerless and defenseless, no human ships had been damaged because the Coalition had never managed to target them effectively. Similar battles erupted across the galaxy as Coalition forces tried to locate missing human colonies. Each encounter ended the same way. Confused alien commanders reporting attacks by invisible enemies using impossible technology. The Cyan Collective's military leader, Overmind Zenth, tried to use psychic powers to locate human thoughts. But human minds moved too quickly and chaotically for the Collective's ordered telepathy to track. Worse, the humans seemed to think in ways that caused the psychic aliens actual pain. Their thoughts are like storms, Zenth reported to the Coalition command. Random, violent, constantly changing. I cannot maintain contact with them long enough to determine their location or intentions. On the negotiation station, Elena received regular updates from human forces across the galaxy. Every report was the same. Coalition forces were being systematically defeated by enemies they couldn't understand or counter. The Zephyrian High Arbiter requested an emergency meeting with the human delegation. He found Elena calmly reading reports from Earth while drinking her morning coffee. "Your people are using forbidden technology," he accused. "Dimensional manipulation is banned by galactic law. Stealth systems that complex are illegal weapons of war." Elena looked up from her reports. "Whose laws? We never agreed to join your coalition. We never signed your treaties. You offered us slavery or extinction. We chose to make our own path. This cannot continue. Your attacks on coalition forces are acts of war." Elena set down her coffee cup and gave the alien her full attention. "High Arbiter, let me be very clear about something. We haven't started fighting yet. What you've seen so far is just us protecting ourselves while we move our people to safety." The tall alien's leaves rustled with confusion. "What do you mean you haven't started fighting?" Elena smiled, and her expression was not entirely friendly. "You wanted to know what humans are really like when we stop trying to be diplomatic. You wanted to see how a young, emotional species handles a real threat. Congratulations, High Arbiter. You're about to find out." That night, stars began disappearing from Coalition space, not going dark, actually disappearing along with their entire solar systems. Coalition scientists worked frantically to understand what was happening to the fundamental structure of space itself. The truth was simpler than they imagined. Human engineers had learned to fold entire star systems into dimensional space, making them invisible and inaccessible to anyone who didn't have the quantum keys. Humanity was rewriting the rules of galactic warfare, one impossible victory at a time. 3 weeks after the peace negotiations collapsed, the galaxy had become a very different place. The Galactic Coalition, once the undisputed master of interstellar space, found itself fighting a war unlike anything in their recorded history. Admiral Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the human flagship Indomitable, studying tactical displays that showed coalition forces scattered across dozens of star systems. The aliens were trying to regroup after losing contact with nearly 100 of their patrol fleets. "Status report," Sarah requested from her operations officer. "All human colonies are secure in dimensional space. Our stealth fleets have engaged coalition forces in 47 systems. Enemy casualties are minimal because we're still using non-lethal tactics, but their military effectiveness has dropped to almost zero." Sarah nodded. The human strategy was working perfectly. Instead of trying to match the coalition's superior numbers and firepower, humanity was using tactics that made traditional warfare impossible. "Any word from the diplomatic front?" Ambassador Vasquez reports that the coalition leadership is requesting another negotiation meeting. "They want to discuss revised terms." Sarah almost smiled. 3 weeks ago, the aliens had been offering humanity a choice between slavery and extinction. Now they wanted to negotiate. But the real test was about to begin. Fleet Commander Zerath of the Crystalline Hegemony had been tasked with ending the human rebellion once and for all. His armada of 300 battleships represented the largest military force the Coalition had assembled in over 1,000 years. Zerath's target was the Kepler system, where intelligence suggested the humans had established a major military base. The Coalition's best scientists had studied captured human technology and believed they had found ways to counter human stealth systems. "All ships, maintain combat formation," Zerath transmitted to his fleet. "Our new sensor arrays should be able to detect human dimensional distortions. When we find their base, we will destroy it completely." The Crystalline Hegemony's ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. Zerath expected to find hidden human installations or dimensional rifts leading to their secret colonies. Instead, he found Admiral Sarah Kim's flagship sitting alone in the middle of empty space, apparently waiting for them. "This has to be a trap," Zerath muttered to his officers. "One human ship cannot possibly challenge our entire fleet." Sarah watched the alien armada approach on her main screen. 300 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. Against her single vessel, it should have been the shortest battle in history. "All stations prepare for combat," Sarah ordered calmly. "Execute Dimensional Strike Pattern Omega." What happened next broke every rule of space warfare that the Coalition had developed over millennia. Reality tore open around the alien fleet. Human ships emerged from dimensional folds, gravity wells, quantum slipstreams, and spatial distortions that shouldn't have been possible. They appeared from inside asteroids that had looked completely solid. They materialized from the hearts of stars where no ship should have been able to survive. Some human vessels seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, attacking from angles that didn't exist in normal three-dimensional space. Others phased in and out of reality so quickly that alien targeting systems couldn't track them. The Coalition fleet found itself surrounded by enemies that followed no known laws of physics. Impossible, Zirath shouted as his sensors reported human ships attacking from directly above, below, and inside his formation simultaneously. Ships cannot occupy the same space. They cannot exist in multiple dimensions. They cannot survive inside stellar coronas. Captain Jessica Torres, commanding the stealth destroyer Shadow, materialized her ship inside the Coalition formation and opened fire on 6 enemy vessels at once. Her quantum cannons fired bursts of energy that existed in 17 different dimensions, making them impossible to block with conventional shields. "Target the engine sections only," she ordered her weapons officer. "Disable, don't destroy. We're not monsters like they thought we were." Across the battlefield, other human commanders followed the same policy. Coalition ships found their weapons systems shut down, their engines disabled, their life support maintained, but their combat capability completely eliminated. The aliens had expected a fierce battle against desperate humans fighting for survival. Instead, they experienced a systematic dismantling of their military, powered by enemies who seemed to exist outside the normal rules of reality. Commander Vrak of the Hive Confederation watched his battleship's weapons go offline after being hit by energy beams that his shields couldn't even detect. His insect-like crew clicked their mandibles in confusion and fear. "How are they doing this?" Vrak demanded from his science officer. "Our intelligence said human technology was primitive." "Sir, I'm reading quantum signatures that suggest these humans are using technology based on principles our science considers impossible. They're manipulating fundamental forces we didn't even know existed." The battle lasted exactly 37 minutes. When it ended, all 300 Coalition ships were drifting powerless in space. Not one had been destroyed, but none retained any ability to fight or flee. Admiral Sarah Kim's voice echoed across all Coalition communication frequencies. "Attention, Coalition forces. Your ships and crews are unharmed. We have disabled your weapons and engines as a demonstration. Any attempt to continue hostilities will result in more serious consequences." Fleet Commander Zirath sat in his darkened command center, staring at displays that showed his entire armada defeated without inflicting a single casualty on the enemy. His diamond-like body had lost its usual bright luster, dimmed by shock and disbelief. "Request immediate evacuation," he transmitted to Coalition High Command. "The humans are using technology that renders our military doctrine completely obsolete. They are not the primitive species we believe them to be." Word of the Kepler defeat spread quickly through Coalition space. Military commanders who had served for centuries suddenly found themselves obsolete. Admirals who had won countless victories against traditional enemies discovered that all their experience was useless against human warfare. The Scion Collective's military leader, Overmind Zenth, tried one final time to use psychic powers against human forces. He focused the combined mental energy of 1,000 psychic warriors and attempted to overwhelm the minds of human ship crews. The result was catastrophic, for the collective human thoughts turned out to be naturally resistant to psychic manipulation. Worse, human creativity and emotional chaos created feedback loops that damaged the psychic aliens' carefully ordered minds. Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the human cruiser, Resilient, felt the psychic attack as a brief headache. Then he activated his ship's new PSI shield generators, technology developed by human scientists who had reverse-engineered captured collective equipment. The PSI shields reflected the psychic attack back at its source, amplified by quantum resonators and focused through dimensional lenses. The collective's attack became a weapon against themselves. Overmind Zenth screamed as 1,000 alien minds experienced the full chaotic power of human consciousness, all at once. The psychic feedback left half the collective Zeit, military psychics, unconscious, and the other half unable to use their powers without experiencing crippling pain. Reports flooded into Coalition headquarters from across the galaxy. Human forces were appearing in systems thought to be completely secure. They were using faster-than-light travel methods that arrived instantaneously, rather than taking days or weeks. They were deploying weapons that affected multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most disturbing of all, they were learning and adapting their tactics with every engagement. Each battle saw new human technologies and strategies that hadn't existed in the previous fight. The Zephyrian High Arbiter called an emergency session of the Coalition leadership. The 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years gathered to discuss something they had never faced before, the possibility of defeat. The humans are not what we thought they were, the High Arbiter admitted to his fellow leaders. Their technology is not primitive. It is so advanced that our scientists cannot understand the basic principles behind it. The crystalline hegemony's leader flashed frustrated colors. How is this possible? They have existed as a spacefaring species for less than a century. We have had interstellar technology for thousands of years. The floating Scion Collective representative pulsed weakly. Its mental voice was barely a whisper compared to its usual commanding presence. I have touched the edges of their thoughts during combat. Their minds work differently than ours. Where we see impossible, they see challenge. Where we see logical limits, they see opportunities for innovation. They do not accept that anything is truly impossible. The Insect Hive Confederation leader clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. Are you saying they have developed superior technology simply by refusing to believe in limitations? I am saying that their entire species approaches problem-solving in ways we cannot predict or counter. They combine logic with intuition, science with creativity, individual innovation with collective cooperation. The result is technological advancement that follows no pattern we understand. 6 months after the peace negotiations collapsed, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in what had once been the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The massive room now served as the command center for humanity's expanding influence across the galaxy. The 12 pedestals where alien leaders had once proclaimed their superiority were empty. Instead, holographic displays showed the current state of galactic civilization, human colonies emerging from dimensional space, new trade routes opening through impossible dimensions, and dozens of alien species requesting alliance with humanity. Elena wore the same diplomatic uniform she had worn during the original negotiations, but everything else had changed. The chamber's walls displayed star maps that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. Systems that had been controlled by the Coalition for thousands of years now flew human flags. Entire sectors of space had been reorganized around human dimensional technology. The Zephyrian High Arbiter approached Elena slowly, his branch-like arms held in a gesture of submission rather than authority. His silver bark had dulled with age and stress, making him look far older than when Elena had first met him. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, his voice no longer carrying the commanding tone she remembered. "The remaining Coalition leadership has agreed to your terms." Elena turned away from the star charts to face the alien who had once threatened her species with extinction. "Please, High Arbiter, call me Elena. We're all equals here now." The tall alien rustled his leaves uncertainly. "The transition has been difficult for my people. We have ruled our sector for over 4,000 years. Learning to follow rather than lead requires significant mental adjustment." Elena's expression softened. "You're not following anyone. That's the point. Humanity isn't here to create a new empire with us on top. We want partnership, not domination." Dr. Marcus Chen entered the chamber carrying a datapad filled with reports from across the galaxy. As humanity's chief xenobiologist, he had become one of the key figures in establishing relationships with former Coalition species. "Elena, we have the final numbers from the integration process," Marcus said, then nodded politely to the Zephyrian. "High Arbiter, your people's adaptation rate is actually quite impressive. 70% of Zephyrian colonies have successfully integrated human dimensional technology into their infrastructure." The High Arbiter's leaves perked up slightly. "Our scientists find human physics both fascinating and terrifying. Your people treat fundamental laws of nature as suggestions to be improved upon." Elena laughed. "That's probably a fair description of how we approach most problems." Through the chamber's massive windows, they could see ships from dozens of different species moving through space, using human-designed dimensional drives. The old faster-than-light technology that had taken days or weeks to travel between stars had been replaced with systems that made the journey instantaneous. Captain Sarah Kim, now promoted to Admiral of the Human Galactic Fleet, joined the conversation. Her uniform bore the insignia of both human and allied forces, representing the new cooperative military structure. The final crystalline hegemony holdout fleet just agreed to surrender, Sarah reported. General Luminara sends her compliments and asks if humanity needs assistance with the Devourer situation. The Devourers. The machine intelligence that the Coalition had been so desperate to fight using human lives as expendable troops. Elena had almost forgotten about them during the rapid changes of the past 6 months. What's the current status of the Devourer advance? Elena asked. Marcus consulted his datapad. They've consumed 4 more systems in the Outer Rim, but their advance has slowed significantly since we began deploying dimensional mines along their predicted route. The Zephyrian High Arbiter looked confused. Dimensional mines? How does one create explosives that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously? Sarah smiled. Human engineering. We took the basic concept of space mines and improved it. Instead of just exploding in normal space, our mines create dimensional rifts that redirect the explosive force across 17 different dimensional layers simultaneously. The Devourer's machines are designed to consume matter and energy from normal space, Marcus added, but they can't process dimensional energy. When they encounter our mines, their consumption systems overload and shut down. Elena walked to the central holographic display and called up a map of the galaxy's outer rim. Red markers showed Devourer positions, while blue lines indicated human defensive positions. Show them our latest development, Elena said to Sarah. The Admiral activated a new display showing massive human ships positioned at the edge of Devourer space. These vessels were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, incorporating technology from dozens of different species enhanced by human innovation. We call them reconstruction ships, Sarah explained. Instead of just fighting the Devourers, we're reversing their damage. These ships can restore consumed planets by pulling their matter back from dimensional space where it was stored during the consumption process. The High Arbiter stared at the display in amazement. You can bring back destroyed worlds? Not destroyed, Marcus corrected. Consumed. The Devourers don't destroy matter. They convert it into energy for their machines. We've learned to reverse that conversion process, Elena added. 3 planets have been fully restored so far. We've relocated the surviving populations from their refugee worlds back to their original homes. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic Coalition had spent centuries running from the Devourers, abandoning entire sectors of space rather than fighting a seemingly hopeless battle. Humanity had turned the tide of that war in 6 months. A new voice joined the conversation as the insect representative of the Hive Confederation clicked into the chamber. Commander Vrak had become one of humanity's strongest supporters after witnessing human technology in action. Honored Elena, Vrak clicked. My people have completed integration of human dimensional technology into our hive ships. We can now transport entire colony populations instantly across the galaxy. The applications for our species expansion are extraordinary. Elena nodded approvingly. That's excellent news. How are your people adapting to working with individual decision-makers rather than hive-mind commands? Surprisingly well. Human concepts of individual creativity within cooperative frameworks have enhanced our collective intelligence significantly. We are becoming more than we were before. This was the pattern Elena had observed across the galaxy. Species that had been locked into rigid ways of thinking for thousands of years were discovering new possibilities when exposed to human flexibility and innovation. The Scion Collective had been the most dramatic example. Their psychic powers, once used only for mental domination and ordered thinking, had been revolutionized by human concepts of creative chaos and emotional complexity. Scion artists were now creating mental sculptures that existed in multiple dimensions. Scion engineers were designing technology that responded to intuition as well as logic. Dr. Chen pulled up another display showing population and development statistics. The integration numbers are remarkable. Every species that has joined our alliance has experienced significant improvements in technology, creativity, and quality of life. But the most important change, Elena said, looking around the chamber at representatives from species that had once considered humanity a dangerous plague, is that we've all learned to see beyond our limitations. Admiral Kim activated a communication link to the human fleet at the galaxy's edge. Admiral Kim to Reconstruction Fleet Alpha. Status report on Operation Restoration. The voice that responded belonged to Captain Jessica Torres, now commanding the lead reconstruction ship. Admiral, we've successfully restored the Altair system. 4 planets, 3 inhabited moons, and an asteroid mining complex are back online. The local population is requesting Alliance membership. Elena felt a satisfaction that went beyond simple victory. 6 months ago, the Coalition had offered humanity a choice between slavery and extinction. Instead, humanity had chosen to remake the galaxy into something better than either species had imagined possible. The High Arbiter spoke quietly. Ambassador Elena, I must ask something that has troubled my people greatly. Why did you show us mercy? After we threatened your extinction, you could have destroyed us completely. Your technology certainly gave you that power. Elena considered the question carefully, because destruction would have made us no better than the Devourers. The universe is full of forces that consume and destroy. What it needs more of are forces that build and create. Marcus added, besides, we learned something important from studying your histories. Every species in the Coalition had been innovative and creative when they were young. You all became rigid and limited because you stopped facing real challenges. Fighting us reminded you who you used to be. Sarah pulled up the final display, a map of the entire galaxy showing the current state of civilization. Human colonies sparkled in blue. Allied species glowed in green. The red markers of devourer consumption were being steadily pushed back toward the galactic rim. The galaxy is becoming something new, Sarah said. Not human, not coalition, but a combination that's stronger than either could be alone. Elena walked to the chamber's great window and looked out at the stars.